This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 214, The Rescuers. Diamonds are Medusa's best friend. Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the number one place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, animation addicts. I'm your host, Morgan Stradling.
And I am Chelsea Robson.
And Chelsea is in the wonderful world of New York City. So give a wave to the UN while you're at it. Say hello.
Oh, I will. Wave away. I'll do my princess pageant wave as well. It'll be great.
Ah, yes. Hello, hello.
Hello.
And that is very appropriate because the movie that we are going to be reviewing today is The Rescuers, which has a scene in the UN. And I have lots of thoughts on this movie and how this whole rescue aid society works together. I grew up loving this movie, but yes, there is lots that we are going to be talking about. And before we get started, I want to read a 5-star review. This is the easiest, best way that you can support the show. This one is from Celebration 2007, and the title is Funny Laughing Face Emoji. Loved this one and loved how you guys talked about the Christianity in Rise of the Guardians. Mason is my favorite. So funny. Thank you so much. And of course, you can leave us a review. It's the easiest way to support the show. We love it. We appreciate your reviews, and they really go a long way, especially in these days where everyone has a podcast now. And this is an easy way that Apple can differentiate between the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you think it's good, let us know with a 5-star review, and we can read yours on next week's episode.
Man, bringing up Rise of the Guardians. That's an OG.
Yeah, it's a good one. With that, let's jump into our main event.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Fred Warner, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Abercrombie has the new suits you need, plus all the collared shirts to go with them. The Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit is the only suit you'll ever need for any occasion. Available in slim, classic, and athletic. Pair with a collared classic. Go with a soft, easy-to-wear sweater polo or a comfortable long-sleeve shirt. With so many different fits and fabrics, you can make a look that's completely your own. Add the Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit and new collared shirts to every occasion this season. Shop online or in store.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was getting frustrated by your forms. Now, Taxes is uploading your forms with a snap, and a TurboTax expert will do your taxes for you. One who's backed by the latest tech, which cross-checks millions of data points for absolute accuracy, all of which makes it easy for you to get the most money back, guaranteed. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
So before we get started with our main discussion, we're going to get to you some basic general information to set the stage. The studio is Walt Disney Animation Studios. The directors were Wolfgang Reitherman, John Lounsbury, and Art Stevens. Now, John Lounsbury, he actually died about 1.5 years before the release of the film, so that's why Art Stevens was brought in. And the release date was June 22nd, 1977. The budget was $7.5 million, which was considered very crazy high at the time. But never fear, it made its money back. Total in its box office with all the various releases that they did, it made $169 million in the box office. And its initial release was very, very successful. So this was a win for Walt Disney Animation Studios and was considered one of the better films of the 70s and especially one of the better animated films since Jungle Book.
And I tend to agree with that. Especially, I feel like this is also one that has aged well, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it feels kind of timeless. Like obviously it's a modern day story and it's not set like modern day, but overall it's really, really, really well. And I think this movie does such a great job with the characterizations. All of the characters are really well-rounded and they have good motivations as to why they're doing the things that they're doing and acting the way that they are. I love Penny. I love Madame Medusa. I love Snoops. And of course, Bernard and Bianca are just great protagonists as well. So all in all, I think they did some really, really good things here and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this one has a soundtrack that I go back and listen to. I did watch this movie enough as a child that all of the songs are ingrained in my mind.
Right.
And even that first one where I don't think it's the best song in general, once again, it's ingrained in my mind. And even though I'm pretty sure I fast forwarded it most of the time just because I didn't care about the credits. But this time going through, I'd realized this or knew this prior, which I probably did, but I was reminded, as though I didn't know it, that one of the directing animators was Don Bluth. And I was like, well, interesting. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fun. He had, you had Milk Hall, you had a good portion of the 9 Old Men. You had like 4 at least on there. And so that was cool to see.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting about Don Bluth, as I was researching this film, this was the film that really was the straw that broke the camel's back, in his words, for leaving Disney. So obviously he had been working for the studio in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, was involved in a lot of things. That he was a supervising animator for this, but he noticed that they weren't coloring the whites of the eyes in of the characters. And he asked about it and they said, oh, well, it's too expensive. So, to cut costs, we're going to do that. So he went and bought the equipment essentially to test this out himself and then said, actually, no, it's not that expensive at all. It doesn't change it. And they still said, well, too bad, sit down and do what you're told. And that basically for him was like, yeah, I'm done. And so went off and created his own studio and has his own legacy as a result of leaving. And I think that's just, we love Don Bluth over here. We're big Don Bluth fans. And I think his story is really inspiring because Walt Disney was the thing. They were the studio, they're the place that you wanted to be. Imagine having been there 20 plus years at this point, this is your everything. Like you're really all bought in. Like he knew Walt Disney personally, but it really takes a lot of courage and guts to see something and see like, hey, this isn't working anymore, and to go off and do your own thing and be very entrepreneurial And because of Don Bluth, animation, he was able to create, very, very distinct and different animated films that are classics to this day. And it really pushed Disney to realize, okay, we're not the only game in town. We need to step it up too. And ultimately, as a result of Don and what he was able to do, we got the Disney Renaissance, and now there's so many different studios. But, a lot of courage is taken, to do things like that. But at the same time, like when you're in a situation like that where you're just not being respected and your thoughts are not, and your opinions are not being received, yes, it's courageous. But at the same time, I have totally been there where you're like, yeah, I'm done. Like, no, see you later. I'm out of here.
Yeah, for sure.
So going along with Don Bluth and all the people that were involved with this, for me, as I was watching those initial credits, I just love seeing names that ultimately went on to do really, really great things. There's like Glen Keane was there, and, John Pomeroy and Gary Goldman, those were the trio of Don Bluth. And so they were involved in this, and just all these other Disney animators who were really, really instrumental in the Renaissance, like Ron Clements. Yeah, we know these names. And so it's just interesting to see like, hey, this is what they were wetting their chops. They were putting their hours in, getting to work. So good times.
Yeah. Glen Keane, I've heard him talk about this movie a lot, actually, because it was one of his very first where he got to work. I was helping to do the push broom scene where Bernard is pushing it. And he's, I can't remember which of the 9 old men that he was working with, but he was just like, well, I don't see any life in this. Like, why is Bernard pushing this broom? Like, does he enjoy his job? Is this something that he appreciates, or is this something he loathes? Like, who is he in this in this very small task that he is, pushing? And I really like hearing that story too.
Nice. I love Glenn.
I do too. We need to get him on the podcast again.
I know. I have the contact for his company and his or his agent, so I need to reach out because he's the greatest. Another thing, you were talking about that intro scene. The song is called The Journey, and watching it this time around, I was like, oh, there's a lot of shortcuts that they're doing here. Like, I guess I always thought this was an animated scene, but it's really just paintings that they slide through, and they change it. It's kind of like a slideshow. Kind of like a slideshow that they just kind of like, here's the still of this, here's the bottle, and here's the still of this, and the bottle's over here, and oh, it's getting crazy in the waves, and here's the bottle being thrown into the air. And I never realized this about this song. I was reading this. Apparently this song, The Journey, is the only song up until this point that's sung like from the eyes or the lens of an inanimate character. So the song is literally like about the bottle. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess when you put it that way, like the first Disney song sung by an inanimate character, but not really sung by an inanimate character, but about an inanimate character. I'm like, wow, that's really getting deep in the, best or the first of its time, adding all of these different qualifiers to it. It's like when I went to China, I think we were in Hong Kong, and we went to go visit this big Buddha statue, and they're like, it's the only... How do they list this?
The biggest sitting Buddha.
Oh, it was like the biggest sitting bronze Buddha. Like all these like little qualifiers that they had to like add to it. Like, okay, yeah, if like keep throwing all of these things on, like of course you can be like the only one of your kind. But yeah, same thing with this. And I just thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, like this helps me really get a feel of where we're going. It is called The Journey, but just the animation style. I'm like, this could have been animated if there were time, if there were money, but clearly it was not. So we get this 2-3 minute scene of just like, here's your still shots, enjoy it. And then, as it arrives in New York, we can see some very like cheaper animation techniques where the boat, it like literally is just like a boat that's been cut out or is like on like clear cellophane, and they're just pushing it from like left to right or right to left, whatever it is. Like, this is the 70s. This is Walt Disney Animation in the 70s. Great.
Oh, goodness. I mean, even with all that, the story was enough. I mean, wasn't this from a book?
Yeah.
Most of the plot points were very well filled out, which I appreciated.
Yeah. I love that we see Penny at the very beginning, and she's already, trapped, if you will, or as my children say, fapped. And, she's really a fighter. We see that she's calling for help. Eventually we see that she's tried multiple escapes, and we see her at the very beginning. She throws that bottle out, and she's already a captive, which I think is interesting. So it sets off the plot, and you understand very quickly the struggle for her. It's sad. Like, you don't even have to have any like relationship with this character to know she's under duress. I mean, and you can tell that this is not a place where she wants to be or is even a legit home, because she's just in this abandoned riverboat, in the bayou. It's just literally in the middle. And I'm like, how do you get power there? That's my question. But yeah, she's a really great character, and it sets off the plot quickly. So we can move into meeting our characters who are going to rescue her, properly titled The Rescuers, with the Rescue Aid Society.
I love the Rescue Aid Society song.
Me too.
It's so catchy.
RESCUE, Rescue Aid Society, heads held high,
touch the sky.
Touch the sky. You mean everything to me.
I love it. It goes on, obviously, but it's so stinking catchy.
Yes, it is.
I still sing that song whenever I have to type the word or write the word rescue or rescuer.
Nice.
RESCUE. It's great.
Yeah, and we get this set up, it's in the UN, and, all of the delegates from the different countries. That makes sense. There's a lot of rotoscoping going on with the human characters. Again, budget cuts. But then each of the delegates has a mice version of the delegate, which, pops out of a suitcase or like appears, and they have their own underground mice world, which if you were a human, how could you not see all these mice just running around the floor of the UN? It's kind of horrifying to think, but hey, they're busy. They got stuff to do. They got policy to change.
No, it does not give a great impression of what's happening at the UN, and the fact that the janitorial system is not up to par.
Right.
But also, I have a bit of a conspiracy theory for you. Let's just see. So how do the mice correspond with the human delegates? Do the mice go ahead and they correspond with the person, and they just okay, you've become the delegate, and now you must catch a ride on this guy's suitcase to go home, so you're always on time with this guy, so you just got to hook yourself to his house, so you just now have an infestation because you are now a UN delegate? Or is it that the mice are chosen first, and there's some type of another system where the mice are the ones pulling the strings?
Yeah, they really do want you to believe that the mice rule the world here, but I am more apt to believe that the humans control the schedule and the mice kind of piggyback off whatever, the human schedule is. If the delegate from Australia has a meeting, the delegate from Australia for the Rescue Aid Society also will be there for a meeting. I think we're looking a little bit too much into this because the UN has a different purpose than the Rescue Aid Society. The Rescue Aid Society is simply there to rescue mostly, I guess, children or those that are in need. It's just really funny that they're the ones that rescue humans. They're not trying to rescue their own kind. In both of the movies, it's a human child is in need. And we are the ones to rescue the child because no one else can do this. The humans can't do this. We have the connection of all the animals, and, we're the brains of the operation. So we're going to take this, which I thought was kind of interesting. In the book, it wasn't called the Rescue Aid Society. It was called the Prisoners Aid Society. And basically it was an international organization dedicated to brightening the lives of prisoners. And so the mice would go into the jail cells or the prison cells and just befriend you, give you, someone to talk to. Not as exciting of a plot, I guess. I was actually trying to get a hold of this book so I could read it before, recording, but it didn't end up happening. But yeah, it's a very popular children's book. This film is based on two of the novels, The Rescuers, which is, the same name, and then also Miss Bianca was the follow-up a few years later. Walt Disney was involved in the initial version of this, because around 1962, that's when they got the rights of it. And so he was involved in, initial planning, and he wanted it to revolve around the actual book, which is about a poet that is held captive by a totalitarian government in kind of a Serbian-like stronghold. So that was cut, and they decided we're just gonna make it less political. And then went through a variety of things. So another thing about the Rescue Aid Society is they're all here, they're singing their song. They have the Mouse Scouts, which are equivalent of Boy Scouts that come in and bring in the bottle. And I just thought it was really funny about the different delegates. They're representing all of these different countries. We have Vienna, which is a city. And then we have Austria, which is a country. And then we have just a big old blanket of Africa. Did you notice that there's just I represent Africa. I'm okay, yeah, sure. We're not consistent here at all. But I guess you take what you can get. Maybe there was only one mouse in Africa of any of the countries who wanted to represent. And so she came. But I love her, and I love her design. She has this amazing fro. And, it's really cool to see each of the characters kind of representing different parts of their culture that they initially come from, the Irish delegate. And Miss Bianca, obviously steals the show. As soon as she walks in, Bernard is just slack-jawed, and all of the men are whoa.
But she just struts in there during the song and automatically takes over the show and just has this little swagger that she does and doesn't it's just unconscious how wonderful she is. I just love Bianca. And they immediately get her chair for her so she can sit down. She is one of those women who knows how to turn on the charm to basically get whatever she wants. But she's not conceited in any way. She really is a great character. She's really down to earth. She's humble, but she's very strong-willed and passionate about what she believes in, and isn't going to let anything, stop her from doing that. They kind of try to talk her out of the mission when she volunteers. But she's really almost naively fearless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And it's just really funny that she gets put with Bernard, who is very superstitious, timid, not confident with himself. And it's just, she's so cute because you can tell that she's not necessarily a respecter of persons. She doesn't necessarily, she has all these different delegates that are raising their hand. They want to be her partner, but she sees something in Bernard and chooses him. It doesn't matter that he's not necessarily a member. He's just the janitor. That doesn't matter to her. She sees him for who he is, and he does a great thing. And they make quite a team, which is great.
I do like Bernard. They don't play in the second one as much as the first one, his superstition. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably a good call. But yeah, through the whole thing, everything is about 13, and he's very superstitious about this whole thing.
There's 13 steps on this ladder. He's we'll just jump over
superstitious. Yes.
Skip the last one. That was another thing about Miss Bianca is her voice, Eva Gabor. That Hungarian accent is so dreamy. It makes me go weak at the knees. It's just so classy. I love it. I can listen to her speak all day long. Sign me up for that accent.
I just want to hear you talk. It's just great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just an interesting premise. It's okay, the mouse, we're here to save the day, and that goes to show that mice, they're confident, they're fearless, they're gonna do what they got to do, and really all they have is this bottle that with this letter that's has water stains in it. It's hard to read certain things, but they're able to go to Morningside, and I like Morningside. I think it's interesting because we're able to get a little bit of her backstory, or at least Penny's backstory, what happened to her, how sad she is. I mean, let's just talk about orphans. That is the saddest thing in the world. And orphanages aren't, at least in the US, aren't much of a thing anymore. I'm sure there are some, but it's more the foster system now, where we're not just going to let you sit in a home with other sad children who don't have parents, but instead we're going to put you with a family so you can live as normal of a life as you can. Great. I think that's a great thing. We just see this orphanage, and we don't see any of the other children until the very end. And we see how I have to imagine that this was just the worst at orphanages, when a family would come and they would basically, it's like picking puppies. They would look around at the different children and, and they picked another girl, and she's just so sad. And, she is older, and that's always been a thing with orphans is, families typically want babies because they want to just raise them from the very beginning. And so the older you get, especially, even nowadays, it's hard. It gets harder. And I've never raised any foster children, so I don't speak to it from personal experience. But yeah, I can see, even though she's the most adorable girl in the world, she keeps getting passed over again and again and again. This whole story is so heart-wrenching. As a kid, I never really saw it as super heart-wrenching, but obviously as I've gotten older and I see this as it is, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just so sad. Yeah, I mean, I remember watching this movie all the time, and there were certain things that never really hit me as being like as bad as they do today. I was just like, oh man, kids, we really are resilient, Like, it's not that bad. It's fine. Yeah. They don't know the difference. Things about Penny, like she has this teddy bear that she doesn't have enough confidence to be able to tell you what she's feeling, but she's more interpreting for the bear because it's easier for her to take care of the bear because that's her taking care of herself in a way. Like, there's a lot of deep things that go along with this emotional trauma with how they've depicted her dealing with all of this. And I'm like, that's really well done, but really so sad. And in the orphanage, we meet Rufus. I always loved Rufus. I thought he was just a great cat. He's just an old little cat who's there to, basically catch mice. And he's very much concerned about his job and his well-being. As soon as he sees these mice, he's like, I can't have you here. They're going to kick me out. And I was reading something and it was saying basically, he speaks to the mice, which makes sense. Animals speak to animals, but he also can speak to Penny. And they were saying that in theory, these animals could talk to people but the people have to be the ones to initiate. And so if the other children in the orphanage would have spoken to him about Penny or about their problems, he could have spoken to them. But since they didn't, he wasn't really ever able to help. I was like, oh, okay, that's a interesting one. That is interesting. But, we wouldn't have a plot if, all the kids were just chatting up Rufus and they could just call. Yeah. But it's interesting because this is a little mystery sort of a film. And so we're getting these little breadcrumbs here and there. They go and they look at her belongings and it's just kind of a big box of stuff. But by interrogating Rufus, they're able to get a little bit more information about, that woman who was here. And that leads them down the path to... Oh, and I was texting you. This would not go with any trashy people like that. Yes, I loved that. Like the sleazy pawn shop, the trashy woman. And I just loved it because it's just like, hey, it's just calling it as it is. I feel like nowadays maybe they wouldn't be as use language like that. Not that that's like bad in any way, but she's trashy. It's a sleazy pawn shop for sure. Well, and it's like they have her wear that dress that is like, oh girl, it shows her back in like the worst way, and then it's like she's obviously has no support up front, and I'm just like, oh yeah, let's talk about Madame Medusa because I love her design. I love that she has these saggy boobs. She's just like, she maybe was beautiful at one point in time, but age happens and people get older, and sometimes people age gracefully, other people they don't, and they're still trying to hold on to it. And, she's in her 40s and just the body is not the same as what it used to be, but she still acts as though she's hot stuff. So she has these saggy boobs and this like fiery red, crazy hair. She's basically no chin. If you've noticed, like she doesn't have like a prominent jawline. Her chin kind of in certain angles just disappears into nothing. A very interesting way that they were able to design her character. And the way that she walks, she doesn't stand up straight. I always just kind of imagine her like hunched over and like not walking the best for your spine health. Right. And she's just tacky. She's totally tacky and sleazy, and she has this like fur coat that she slings around and then she gets mad at the suitcase and she's trying to sit on it and get it to close. You got these high heels. Yeah. So I absolutely love her character. Initially, they were going to have this be kind of not necessarily a sequel to 101 Dalmatians, but to have Cruella be the villain in this movie, which I thought would have been a cool... That would have been interesting. Not an Easter egg, but just like a... what's the term? Crossover. I thought it would be a cool crossover. Yeah. If she just... Hey, yeah, like this is something else that happened and she just happens to be in this movie. But they were really, really against it. Some animators were really against it and didn't want that. But Milt Kahl animated Medusa. And I think because, the Nine Old Men, this is one of the last films that a lot of them were involved with. Milk Hall previously had done more stoic characters like Prince Philip. He had done, I believe, Madame Mim. And there you can definitely see Madame Mim in Medusa in certain parts. But he was just able to kind of go free with Medusa. And her animation, like anytime that she's on screen, you're captivated. And I think the scene that stands out the most is where she's taking her makeup off and pulling the eyelashes off. I feel like that is ingrained into every child's memory, because I was watching this with my children, and the first thing that my son said when we were watching is like, why is she taking her eyelashes off? Because it's a really cool scene that you don't see all the time, and she rips those eyelashes off, and then she's just kind of bare. Oh, it's so, so good. It just goes to show, you can be very talented, and there's lots of talented animators, that can get the job done, but true masters of the craft just take the performance of a character and the memorability of a character to a whole other level. And Medusa shines because of Milk Hall's animation. And Geraldine Page, who was the voice actress, did a really, really great job. And apparently she did her takes in mostly one take. Like nearly all of her takes were first take done, which is
good for her.
Insane. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I saw Medusa as the villain. She was always the villain, and you got that. But once again, this goes back to as I was saying it before, like it didn't seem as bad as it does today. And I'm looking at this woman, and she's kidnapped this girl because she is an orphan, and puts her down in this hole, makes her work in these and find this diamond for her, and she's bringing up all these little ones, and they're like, oh, she doesn't want those little ones. And that's another thing. I'm thinking, okay, if it were me, I would actually really want the little ones because those are less able to track.
Right.
It's
right.
the
Miss
big
Pawn
one
Shop.
that everybody notices.
Right. Yeah. Those are a little bit more, there's a bit more of a market for that versus a internationally renowned diamond that is the largest diamond in the world.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, girlfriend, you're really not going through the details of how you're going to get away with this.
I'm like, money is money is money. And that seems to be her number one motivation. Well, I'm not sure. It's never clear that she wants it because it's just the most amazing diamond and she wants to own it, or does she want it so she can sell it? I always assumed it was because she could sell it because she owns a pawn shop. She's kind of a businesswoman. So you can kind of see this is what she's into. She tries to dress. She's not a classy lady who's trying to be a classy lady. You know what I mean? In the way that she dresses and acts, and she wants to be a part of that life. So I just kind of assumed she wants money so she can truly be a part of higher society.
Yeah, but that one would be so difficult to sell without anybody noticing.
Well, also fast forward to the very, very end. They're like, oh yeah, she got that diamond and they gave it to the Smithsonian. I'm like, heck no. That is Penny's diamond. That is government seizure. Why are they taking that from her? Like, oh, hey, cool, thanks. Hey, no, as consolation prize, you can get adopted. I'm like, heck no. Instead of seizing that from her, it is her property because she found it. It was pirate treasure, which I believe the way that it works, if you find pirate treasure, that doesn't belong to the state. That belongs to whoever finds it. And
it depends on where it is,
it's hers.
Actually.
So you need, okay, well, Chelsea clearly knows a little bit more about this than me, but nonetheless, I think they should have purchased it from her. Sure, purchase it, put it in the Smithsonian that way, or sell it to a private dealer. So, and then fund her college fund and her life from here on out. She deserves it.
Well, I'll let you know how I know a little bit about this. So there's a guy named Mel Fisher who spent a good portion of 25 years or something like that off the coast of Key West looking for this Spanish treasure that had been lost. And seriously, every single day he would go out, and that was one of his things. He's just like, nope, today's the day. Today's the day we're going to find it. And then one day he actually found it.
Wow.
But then because it was in a specific area that the American government tried to say that, oh, because it was here, it belongs to us, and therefore you can't have it. And it's just this huge thing. But look it up. It's a really cool story, first off, how his attitude about the whole thing, every day getting up and saying today's the day, and actually getting to the point where nobody else believed him. They thought he was crazy, and then he finally found it. And then, of course, people come in and say, actually, that's ours. You know, it's the little red hen kind of repeating itself.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as laws go, it's very iffy when governments say they want something. It takes a lot of money and lawyers to say that they can't.
So, moral of the story is if you find a bunch of treasures and pirate stuff, just sell it and
go for the little
be
ones.
On your way. Do not make a big deal about it. Do not get in the papers because most likely it's going to be seized. Great.
Exactly.
All right. Well, okay. So basically you're saying Penny never stood a chance. That was never going to be her diamond. So, but what are the little diamonds? Come on. Okay. The story isn't about the diamonds. Well, it is about the diamond.
She's the only one who knows where all these little ones are. So I feel like she should tell her parents, let's go back there. I can dig up these little diamonds.
Let's go back to Black Bayou. I know exactly where. There's a little bucket. It's super easy.
I mean, there are probably still a whole bunch on the boat, unless it was Snoops that went back and decided to get them all. Which actually, that's the smarter way. Come on, Medusa. You get distracted by the big shiny. You stick with the little things, and you'll make it big.
Yep, totally. So they don't catch Medusa on her plane. They end up having to catch their own plane with Albatross Air. And I always thought this character, Orville, was really funny. He's just, a great little character. We get more of Bernard with his superstition, with the day is the 13th and the 13th steps on the ladder. And at this point, we're really seeing the juxtaposition between the two characters. Miss Bianca very much is a go-getter. She's fearless. She's going to go do. And he's reluctantly doing. And there's lots of times where it's like he really doesn't want to be there. You can tell. And he's put in situations that make him nervous. And we'll talk about this in our next episode where we're reviewing a movie. We're reviewing the sequel right after this. He changes a lot in the sequel, so I'm not going to spoil it. Stay tuned for that episode in 216. But he isn't quite grown through some of these problems that he has with superstition and whatnot, and that's for the sequel.
Orville is one of those characters that I liked him. He just skips out of there really quick, and I think that they should have brought him back at least one more time. Like, how did they get out of there? I guess they didn't really need him. Maybe they did.
At that point, you want to wrap it all up.
Yeah. I will say, though, as far as houseboats go, an old steamboat ferry is pretty cool. I just couldn't live on one without AC. And I know I'm bougie. I know. But AC is kind of like my end all. Like, oh, if you don't have AC, I can't do it. Especially out on the bayou. Like, oh, that sounds miserable.
Yeah.
Like, in theory, this sounds fabulous. In practice, oh, so terrible.
Right. Not to mention that it's infested by her alligators.
Oh,
Brutus, Nero, you're too soft. I love Penny when she's just kind of on her own and she meets the mice and then she's doing her impersonations of Medusa and she's kind of walking with her hips and you're too soft. Oh, she's so cute. I love her as a character. She's just very, positive in light of the circumstances. And, she tries to escape, as soon as they do arrive. And it's suspenseful. It's exciting. You're wondering if she's going to be able to do it. This has happened multiple times before. And good for her. I'd hope if I were in a situation like that, I would... It's just so hard. And I hope this never happens to anyone and any of us. But, it makes you wonder, would I have the courage to fight for my life? Would I rather die than be in a situation that, I'm being abused, and she hates going down that hole. It's just absolutely frightful. And another thing that I don't understand, they take her down into the hole at high tide, basically. I'm you need to do this 12 hours prior. I understand for the movie, it makes a great movie when the water is rip-roaring up and all of this, she's getting swept away and there's just the tide is coming in and the clock is ticking. But I'm this is not, and it's not necessarily this tide. It's kind of this blowhole that's happening, but it seems to only happen at certain times. So I'm why do you not time this better when it's dormant? I don't know. Maybe it's one of those ones that's constantly going, the one at Ensenada that blows up every once in a while. I don't know. I mean, these are the things that I think through. I'm you're not very smart, bad guys. You need more time and you're not allowing yourself more time.
Yeah. I think, okay, how do you think as far as like a henchman, how do you like Snoops?
He's good. He's just so wormy. And you could tell he's like kind of a good guy, but he's not a good guy. He's really not a good guy. He basically is the stand-in for Horace and Jasper. He's like those two characters combined.
Yes.
And it's unsure whether he is like romantically involved with Medusa, you know, because it's one guy instead of two. Like you never really thought that Horace and Jasper were an item, either one of them with DeVille. But with him, it's like, are you the husband? Or are you just like the business partner? She treats you so poorly, which I think is another reason that makes Medusa a great character. She just treats everyone like trash, you know, like the trash that she is, she treats others. And yeah, I think he's pretty good. You know what's interesting about Snoops? Okay, so I just looked it up. He's the incompetent business partner. And actually, they wanted Snoops to have a bigger role, but the voice actor died. He died in 1974, which is crazy. This came out in 77. And so they had the majority of his lines already done, and they couldn't expand his role. And this is one thing that you will find with the Disney company at this time is like if someone dies that's a voice actor, they opt not to replace them. And so they didn't want to replace him, and they didn't want to have someone like finish his lines. And so his role is what it is. And I think that's fine. I think if he had a bigger role, it just would have maybe fought for, you know, attention over Medusa and what was happening. Like, I just thought everyone was kind of perfectly in their roles in what they did. You know, Brutus and Nero, we don't see them too much. They obviously are a threat when they need to be. And, you know, they get taken care of, you know, as a way to escape. They have this big plan on how to lock them in the elevator. But yeah, I think everyone's pretty near perfect. And, you know, and going back to Medusa, one thing I read, you know, Medusa is this character from Greek mythology. And if you looked Medusa in the eyes, you would turn to stone. And if you notice, anytime that Penny looks at Medusa in the face, she's kind of like super still and just kind of like shocked. Like she doesn't move for a period of time, which is like, I think an interesting allusion to, you know, the character's origins, or at least, you know, the name. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Medusa's really conniving, and, you know, there's times where she's really trying to sweet talk Penny, you know, where she's like getting ready for bed and taking off all of her makeup and trying to convince her. It's not necessarily working, but she thinks she has this charm. Oh, Penny!
Yeah.
It's like, get out of here.
Yeah. What was funny when I first was today, when I was watching this, I just thought you really could just trade her out with Cruella. And I felt like that was a good, but the thing is, like, she's so much worse. And I don't understand why Medusa doesn't get higher ranking in villains, because she's evil.
Yes.
Like, nobody really remembers this just because it's like normalizing child trafficking. I don't know. Like, but it's just weird because why don't we recognize how evil she is? Like, so for example, let's go through some of the different Hades. Obviously, Lord of the Dead, you know, he's evil. Great. You've got Ursula. Yeah, she does turn people into little worms and keeps them as her little slaves that she looks upon. So yeah, that's kind of bad. I would say that's really bad too.
So another thing in the Bayou is we get the kind of these animal characters who help out, and it kind of shows the interconnected world of the animals. You know, you don't necessarily have to be a mouse to be a part of the crew, to help out. It seems like animals just in general, well, you're either two things, right? You're bad and you work with the humans and you do bad. Or if you're left on your own, you're just a really good person, whatever, you know, just a good animal. And typically they like to help the humans. Like they're going to do anything they can to help someone that typically is not very good to their species. But you know, there's that little, is she a rat? I don't know what she is. Her name's Ellie Mae. She's a muskrat. Okay, cool. There's a southern animal we got here in the States, but she's a muskrat, and she's just like rounding up all the neighbors, and they're going to help save that little girl, Penny.
I love the voice cast of all of these little rodents and creatures, the Bayou critters.
Yes.
I think they're fabulous because, like, it just reminds me of Robin Hood, and I'm like, oh, I know all you voices.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So Pat Buttram, he's Luke, the muskrat that likes to drink his homemade liqueur. Growing up, I knew that he was drinking alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And you did too, right? Like, I think that doesn't go over kids' heads, right?
I don't think so. No,
not us at least. Yeah, I always knew like, okay, he's drinking his home brew. It's homemade and it packs a punch. And I just think the way that they animate it is great. Just that it like is this literal fire in the belly, and they're coughing smoke, and they give it to Bernard, and he's like and just coughing up a storm. It's great. So right. I kind of like those little elements that they had there, because making your own moonshine, that is something that they do in the South. So I like they incorporated those elements there.
I like them. I would be your friends. I'm not sure if you would accept me as one of your own because I'm very different, but I appreciate all of you. So
yeah,
good folk.
And then there's Even Rude, which is quite the name. That's a name that has never been heard since, basically.
Yeah.
But he's the little dragonfly, and I always loved and got a kick out of him, how he just, gives his heart into everything, but he's a sprinter, not a long distance run, athlete.
Right.
And so he runs out of steam really quick. And I just always have this image of him breathing, and as he's panting out of breath, like I can't even do it, but we all know that sound. It's just like very distinct. And
yeah.
Or Even Rude. And it's great because it allows them, like, they can't just, it's like when you're in a video game and you find this item that's just like so overpowered and can get you everywhere you need to go. With him, he runs out of energy, so it forces them to find other ways to get stuff done.
Give him the brew.
yes. See, these like little gags keep coming back that make it fun.
They had some of the best gags. One of my other favorite gags was the spider shaking its fist as Evan Rude goes by, and he like wraps himself up and he's like, I love kid type thing.
Yes.
Shake harder, boy.
I love it.
They had great gags. Like the artistic gags in this, I think, are one of those elements that are just so well done in animated films that you can't get as well in a lot of, using all my qualifiers, because it's like you can get these things, but I just feel like it's so much easier to do in animation, but it's just at a whole nother level with these with the 9 Old Men, because they were just so in that zone, and I so appreciated that. And even nowadays, you'll see a lot of animators put those little gags in there that just add to the whole scene in general, and I really appreciate those.
Mm-hmm.
Bianca, once again, is just fabulous as she's going down. Like, she is, as I said before, it's like it's naive, but it's not unwarranted, her courage. Like, there's a lot of things that she just feels like, we're flying on Orville, going down these great roller coaster rides. Oh, it's so wonderful. You fly beautifully. But she also is just like, oh, we need to do this. This is what we need to do. And just is very determined and doesn't let situations get in the way of what she thinks should be done, and just finds a way to do it. I just really appreciate her, but also just everything about her animation and her style and her voice. Just Bianca is fabulous.
Yes. Perfection. I think that she's definitely a forgotten Disney female lead, like top, women. Princesses, people always are categorizing the princesses, but just like anyone who's like a female, not necessarily princess, she would be top of the list. She's just so great in so many ways.
I agree. But it also doesn't take anything away from Bernard, I'd say, because they're both just different, and neither one is particularly saying that they are right. It's just more of like getting out of their comfort zones or getting out of their normal moments and being able to work together. I like seeing that as well. All in all, I think we should rate this.
Let's do it.
So I really like the adventure part of this. I really like the character building and how they built up all of the elements of the rescue. Like, for example, how are we going to do this? Well, they find all these elements that are there, and it's, feasible within the world that they've already built. They already showed that they have all of these fireworks, send up the flares. So it's okay. They have those already, and the rescue, while eccentric, is believable within the frame. And I thought that was well done. And all in all, the whole story made sense. Characters were endearing. I'm going back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4-star. I would like to give this a 4-star. It is a little slower, and so I'm not sure if I can give it up to that level, but I think I'm just going to go with it and just say yes, 4-star.
Okay. So watching this was a real delight. I think this is one of those movies that in your head, it's slow, and it might prevent you from watching it. I feel like that's always with me with this movie. It's like, the rescuers. It just, in my mind, it's like, it's slower, it's not as good or whatever in my mind. But then once I sit down and watch it, I'm like, this is so fun. This is great. I love the characters. I love the Rescue Aid Society. Really, every main character is very, very well done. Like I said, Medusa is fantastic. Snoops, Penny, Bernard, Bianca, all of them are fantastic. And I love these characters. And it's just really surprising to me. It's not surprising to me that we ended up getting a sequel from this. And this is the first of the Disney canon to get a sequel. This was just, we weren't there during this time, but it was just such a hit when it was released that it was kind of a no-brainer that they ended up doing that. But the songs were good. You know, they're not your typical, characters singing the songs, but they add this subtle element. You know, they're very 70s in their way. Apparently Karen Carpenter was initially asked to do the songs for this film, and she really wanted to do it because she was a huge Disney fan, but they were unable to do it. And man, if you would have put Karen Carpenter in this, that would have taken this 70s vibe into a whole other level, right?
It would.
But I just, as I was watching it, even though I've watched this tons and tons of times before, I just thought it was fun. It was enjoyable. The pace is pretty good. It knows where it needs to go. It kind of is this mystery element as they're trying to discover Penny and figure out her backstory, and then trying to escape. The Devil's Eye, I think, is just a really cool plot device that helps ground it and keep it, this is the reason why she's been kidnapped, and we got to find it or we can never escape, sort of thing. And so the tension in that moment is exciting as the water is coming up. And we didn't even talk about this, but the Devil's Eye being stuck in the skull, I always loved that growing up. I thought that was a great visual and just a clever way to hide it and have them use their ingenuity, and them being small little mice, they're able to discover this thing that everyone has been looking for. It wouldn't have been without the help of the mice. They would have found the Devil's Eye. And it just wraps up very nicely. I'm really happy to see Penny as she is adopted, and the Rescue Aid Society, they go on, and there's another case to be found. So like you, I'm going to rate this 4 stars. I think it's just really solid. Not the most amazing thing in the world, but very, very solid film. Okay, so 2 random notes before we wrap this up. So have you heard about the nudity scandal?
No.
Okay. So apparently in the second release to home video, somewhere during post-production, someone put an image of a topless woman, and you can see her breasts and her nipples. And she's in the window of one of the New York City, buildings as Bianca and Bernard are flying through the city, kind of I think it's, from what I'm looking at the still right now, and I'll include a link to it in the show notes, but it appears that it was when they're doing the takeoff, because Bernard is holding onto his seat, freaking out. But it's just in super fast scene. You can barely see it. It appears twice because they reuse a lot of animation and scenes in this film.
Oh, gosh.
And so they had to recall, it's so small in the background, you can barely see it. Here, I'll put it on the show notes for you real fast. Because, Chelsea wants to see a topless woman today. But they ended up having to recall about 3.4
the podcast
million.
Is clean, but the links that we link to may not be.
Okay. Well, hey, if they want to see it, I'm not here to censor. It's not bad. I mean, you can see it. It's we're all adults here. At least if you're not, please ask your parents. They had to recall about 3.4 million VHS tapes due to this, which is pretty crazy. So this wasn't something that was they were being artsy in the initial release. This was the second release of the film where someone was just being a dope and decided to put that in there. So
I see it. Oh,
there you
God.
go. People, come on, get your head out of the gutter. They're so clever, and there was never going to. I mean, that's the thing is there's always these people, even back in the day, that would freeze frame stuff where it's even though it's so fast, it's just blink and you miss it. Someone didn't blink and they did not miss it, and they let Disney know.
Oh, goodness. Well, there you go.
RESCUE, Rescue Aid Society.
All right, our next episode is going to be a really fun nerdy couch discussion. We are ranking the different Disney hunks, heroes, and princes, and it's a collaboration podcast with our friends at Banter. I Hardly Know Her, Wes and Perry. They join us to help us rank these guys because we actually were on their podcast where we ranked the Disney princesses, and that was so fun. We'll include a link to that episode in the show notes because seriously, this is one that episode that we did with them is just, we had this ranking system where we had 3 different criteria that we ranked them on, and there was a big giant spreadsheet involved. It was such a blast. And so we are recreating that. We're doing that for the guys, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear that. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because we're coming back at you next week, ranking all the hotties.
Woohoo! All right, until next time,
we are the Rotoscopers. Before we get started, I want to read a 5-star review. This is the easiest. Okay, sorry, I'm getting too close to the mic. So this one is from Mace. Nope. This one is from Celebration.
So the first thing that I want to say when I saw this as it was starting is the music is very, it sticks in my mind.
Are we doing the main discussion, all this stuff first? Or the?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I just keep, my thing wasn't pulled in the right spot. Go for it.
Okay. You've been listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag Animation Addicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews.